Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy entrepreneurs, professionals, and business owners publish to grow their businesses and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of spotlights on remarkable people and experts from across the country and even in your town. Joining me on this segment is Eric Shulman. He's a business Yoda, quite frankly, and the founder of An Inside Man. Eric, welcome to the program.
Welcome. I feel like I'm 900 years old now when people refer to me as Yoda.
Eric, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically the types of folks that you help.
Mark, I started out, and I'm basically a serial entrepreneur. I've grown up in business from the 60s and 70s, working in my family's record and music stores, to the 80s when I owned and built the largest direct marketing company in Orlando, which I sold, to my wife's wedding cake business, which we turned into the premier bakery in Orlando and sold, to working 8 years in the consulting field in New York, Boston, up and down the East Coast. And then for the last 20 years as a Sandler trainer, owning the Sandler office here in Orlando. So I've actually seen every type of business, retail, wholesale. I've worked in most of them. I consulted to most of them. In the last 20 years, I've helped most of them grow. And as I look for the next 5 years before I start to head into retirement, I'm looking for a way to do the Vulcan mind meld, to cross reference a Star Wars and a Star Trek reference, to try and get some of the knowledge that's up here into other people's heads. I've always found that the cheapest mistake is somebody else's. So if I can prevent you from making a mistake because I made that mistake already, it's a whole different, I can literally change people's trajectory in their business and in their lives.
So you're working with all types of different types of business owners. Tell us some specifics. Are these startups? Are these CEOs of growing companies? Who are they?
It's a good question. There's a couple different phases, Mark, that we go through with business. The startup phase is where you're the chief cook and the bottle washer. You're doing everything in the world. You're setting up your marketing. You're doing your accounting. You're trying to get your website. And it's stuff that we're not all experts at because we tend to have an area of expertise. And it's very, very difficult and confusing. So to try and hack through that and to have some of the pieces already in place can save months and months of time. The second phase is what I call the growing part of the business, and it tends to turn into Groundhog Day. If you take a look at two intersecting lines in terms of an axis of time, in the beginning, you're spending lots of time and making no money. And as the business grows, these lines get closer, and you finally get to a point where you have more money and you're spending less time in the business. Mark, most businesses get caught between where those lines cross and somewhere back here. They never get to the point where the business is generating more money than the time that it's taking from them. And that's when it truly becomes a real business. If you've got to put more time in to earn the money, you own your own job. If the business generates money for you when you're not there, you own a business. So part of it is teaching owners the difference between those two and getting them through that break point. The third area that I work is every business will eventually sell or close. And most of us think about selling the business. And to most business owners, our business is a good part, if not the majority, of our retirement plan. True?
Absolutely.
And so, how do you maximize that payday, which sometimes takes 1 to 2 to 3 years of planning, so that if you know you're going to sell in 5 years, you begin preparing now, so that anytime between 3 and 7 years, you're in a position to sell, and you might be able to add a zero to the sale price of the business if you know what the buyer is going to be looking for. Having done this 5 times in my life, built them and sold them, I know what the buyers are looking for so I can help build the value drivers in the business. Is that too much, or does that give you a pretty good overview of who I am and what I do?
That was a terrific overview of all the three phases of a business. Being mindful of the clock, which one do you want to focus on today? What do you want to talk about? The challenges of the startup, the growth, or fixing to sell?
Well, let's talk about growth because growth takes place in all three of those segments.
Okay,
Let me
terrific.
begin.
What's the biggest challenge to growth? You mentioned a little bit of the obstacles there. What's their biggest obstacle to growth?
Most people who are not professional salespeople, Mark, don't like to sell. and they don't like to be sold. The saying is people love to buy, they hate to be sold. So, how do you learn how to have meaningful conversations with people where by the end of the conversation, they discover that they need what you have and they ask if they can buy it rather than you trying to sell it? It's a difference in the philosophy of how you approach people. You're a diagnostician. You know, when you go in for to the doctor when your shoulder hurts, you do not want him trying to sell you on the new stainless steel shoulder. You want him to find out what the problem is, take the pictures, do the diagnosis, try physical therapy, try shots long before they put you down on the table to cut and do major surgery. Well, sales is the same process. You have to diagnose before you write a prescription. Sometimes the client or the prospect you're meeting with really isn't a fit for you. And that's good to discover quickly. Mark, I just figured out I'm the wrong guy. I don't think I can help you, but I got somebody I can send you to. Or if you figure out they do need what you have, Mark, I just figured out the kind of problem you've got is something I can help you with. That's good to find out quickly. So if we're there to diagnose the problem to see if we're the right specialist for the job, that's the conversations we need to be having. Most people, if you hold them down, I'll go through his wallet and you feel the pressure in somebody trying to close a deal. I don't like it when people try to hard sell me. Your prospects don't like it either. So learn how to have a conversation where they go, holy crap, I need what Mark has. Mark, can I be a client? You go, yeah, I guess you could. And now they're coming on board willingly, and there's a lot less pressure. I don't like pressure either from the selling side or the buying side. How about you?
Absolutely. So growth is really about refining that sales process and making it efficient and clean so you can scale the business.
How about even having a sales process? If I asked you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, man, but what is your sales process? It's a Monday morning, you have no business. What's your sales process? Most people go, I guess I make some phone call, and they have no idea where to even start. The first thing you need in the sales process is you need specific behaviors that you're doing. If it's cold calling, that's great. Well, how many cold calls a day or a week are you going to make? And from those cold calls, how many conversations do you have? And you begin tracking that data. If I know I have to make 10 phone calls to have one conversations and I need to have four conversations, well, I make 40 phone calls today. It's real simple. Now I can get better and have one conversation out of four. Now I only have to make 16 phone calls to have the same number of conversations. Then you track your ratio of conversations to meetings or next steps. Well, what's that ratio? And then you track your number of conversations that are meaningful to the proposal or the close stage, and what's that worth? Let's take an example. What's a typical client worth in your world? Is it $1,000? Is it $10,000? In your world, Mark, what's a typical client worth?
Typically, a first end-to-end project, 15,000.
$15,000. Good. So if a client's worth $15,000, I'm going to do cookbook with you so they can see how it works. If you're doing prospecting and you have people coming in, you're doing the radio shows, of the leads that you get, how many of them or would you consider good leads? We need to talk again.
I'd say probably maybe 20 to 30% of them are
All right.
good.
Let's take the lower number, 20%. So 20 people, 100 people call you, and 20 of them it makes sense to talk to. Of those 20 people, how many of them get to the next step where it makes sense to do a proposal?
Great question. I'd say out of the 20% of viable prospects, perhaps another maybe 15% might move, 15 to
Okay,
20.
so out of the 20, we have three that it makes sense, 15%, to write the proposal. Of those three proposals, is your close ratio 1 out of 3, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 6? What's your close ratio?
It's better than 50% when you get to that
Okay, let's
refinement.
let's say it's only a third because I like the numbers to be low. So you get one deal out of making those calls. So you make 100 calls, you have 20 conversations, you have three or four that want to talk, and one closes for $15,000. I'm going to change your world right here. We are no longer going to pay you $15,000 when you close a deal, but we're going to pay you $150 every time you dial the phone because it's the same number, isn't it, Mark?
Yes.
So if your comp plan was you got paid $150 for every phone call you made, how many phone calls would you make today?
As many as I can fit in. So
Now, you
that's the
understand how
mental shift.
we've literally just changed your paradigm and how you look at prospecting. Second thing on prospecting, you need to be doing 3 to 5 regular prospecting activities every single week, every single month. My key prospecting activities are doing free talks, doing interviews like this, or public talks or paid talks. So getting out in front of a public. Matter of fact, right here on the wall, it says the words free talks. Why? Because when I walk into my office every day, free talks is right at the top of my mind. Another thing that I do, I make cold calls. I don't make a lot of cold calls, but I make a few. I'm good at them. I have about a 70% conversation rate, and I have a better than a 50% close rate. So I don't need to make 50 phone calls. I make 4 or 5 phone calls. I've got 2 or 3 good prospects now in the pipeline, or I call the wrong people. One of the two things happens. Um, I do. I ask for referrals actively. Asking for referrals, not getting referrals, but asking for referrals is a key prospecting activity. Now, people are going to say, I'm sending out email blasts and I'm doing these things. And what's interesting is those things are passive. You can do an email blast at 3 in the morning. Active prospecting takes place from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m., whenever your client is capable of being talked to. So 3 to 5 active prospecting, going to live networking meetings, going to trade shows, doing presentations at trade shows. You make a list of the things that you're good at, where you can do well, and then you do those 3 to 5 things like an exercise program. And how much were you getting paid for every phone call?
$150. So make all,
And,
all the
and
calls I can.
so part of it is you got to change your mind and figure out what's the one call worth to me. And now it's like, if someone's going to pay me $150 to dial the phone, even if they're not there, I'm going to make phone calls today. Because if it's 1 out of 20, it doesn't matter whether they answered the phone or not. That was one more. That's $150.
Eric, you've got such great experience and a huge knowledge to share. Take us back to what even inspired you to start your first business. How did you get started and what brought you to here?
Well, sales is an accidental profession. Nobody ever plans to be in sales when they're 12 years old. What did you want to be when you were 12 years old, man?
Probably a karate instructor.
A karate instructor. I wanted to be 13. I wanted to be a teenager. I wanted to be James Bond. Yeah, he had a cool life. Look at that. He got an Aston Martin with an ejection seat. He got the pretty girls. He got a suitcase full of money. He's got a private jet and a license to kill. He can kill people whenever it looks like a cool job. About a year later, my dad opens a record store in Levittown, New Jersey, 1963. 6 months later, the Beatles are on the Ed Sullivan Show. We're busy in the store, and my mom said, go wait on that man. My mom said, go talk to a stranger. The reason we don't make cold calls is it's our mommy's fault, because your mommy taught you don't talk to strangers, right? And now your boss is telling you call strangers, and that's why people have call reluctance. That's a 2-hour class all by itself. But so I went over and waited on somebody. So I sort of got into sales by accident. We sold the stores in Jersey, moved to Florida, and around 1978 or 79, I realized I was never going to get rich in the retail business with my 2 brothers and their families, my mom and dad, and me and my family. 3 stores, 4 families. I did the math. And my dad had been telling me, you'll always make a good living in retail, but you'll never get rich. So I left the family business and went into the marketing field, made a living right about here, like most small businesses, for 3 years. And in 1983, in April of 83, somebody walked into my office and handed me a manual by this guy named David Sandler. And I started utilizing the Sandler system. Took me 3 years from 80 to 83 to get the business out of the house, 1 employee, and I'm sharing an office. I got the manual. 3 years later, I moved into 50 15,000, 17,000 square feet. I had 54 full-time employees. We were the largest in Orlando. So how I got into sales is by accident, but I'm good talking to people. I enjoy helping people, and I believe in ethical selling. You always make sure that the client or prospect wins bigger than you if they buy. If I sell them that $15,000 package, you'll make your two, three, $4,000 in profit, but they're going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business when your marketing program works. So they win bigger than you. That's an ethical sale.
Fantastic. We've got a couple of minutes left here, Eric. For our
Yeah.
listeners in the audience that would love to connect with you, learn more, and find out any programs or ways to work with you, what do you have to offer them, and where do they find you?
Well, my website is aninsideman.com, just like it sounds. They can reach me, eric.insideman@gmail.com. And I run a CEO mastermind group for owners and presidents of companies on the fourth Wednesday of every month that anybody's welcome to attend a couple of times as a guest. It's 2 hours. We brainstorm through problems. You'll learn a lot from other people. And what's interesting is it's lonely at the top. So when CEOs get to talk to CEOs in other cities and other towns and other industries, they can get completely honest with each other. Man, I think I'm really screwing up. I've got a problem with an employee, the stuff they can't talk about within their own organization. I also offer a free 1 hour consultation, a let's get to know each other meeting with any business owner who wants to explore, can we do something? Are there some areas we could help? At the very least, I guarantee you'll get at least $1,000 worth of information in an hour. I'll either help you make $1,000 somewhere in your business that you can uncover, or I'll help you save $1,000 somewhere in your business just as a part of the conversation. Whether we do anything beyond that, it's totally irrelevant. I try not to have retail conversations with people. Let me see if I can help you. Let me see if I can give you something today. If we're a fit, you and I will know it by the end of the conversation. And if not, you make a friend.
Eric, this has been absolutely fascinating, terrific. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with my audience today. And I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Good. We ought to get together sometime and talk about strategic customer care, which is the fact that everybody in an organization is part of the sales process. They just don't realize it.
Sounds like a great follow up segment for sure. Thank you
Excellent.
so much
Hey,
again, Eric.
thanks for inviting me. Hey, go sell something, guys.
That's Eric Shulman. He's the founder of An Inside Man. This segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy entrepreneurs, professionals, and business owners publish to grow their businesses and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for tuning in.